Hello, and thanks for joining us again for Fathom Live, a show dedicated to giving you tips and insights from leaders and experts in the real estate industry. I'm your host, Josh Harley. I'm the CEO of Fathom Realty. Normally, I'd have a co-host right here, but he's sitting behind the computer. And he's sitting behind the computer because JC, the guy who normally sits behind the computer, is on vacation. I didn't know we still did that. We actually do that now?
Vacations?
We have to give people vacation? That stinks because now I've got to do this and I'm not very good at this. So you have to bear with me. I'm actually really lucky to have a great guest here with us today. Kristen Wright. She's a very successful agent. She's built a team. I think that she's got a lot of great things to share. So with that, I'm going to jump right into it and say, Kristen, I'm so glad you're here with me. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. I've heard some great things about you, so I'm excited for this opportunity to have this discussion with you. Before I get started, one of the things I like to ask everybody is tell me a little bit about your background and what got you into real estate in the first place.
I was in corporate in leadership for Verizon for over 20 years and moved to Texas 5 years ago. And when we moved here, my husband was very interested in us getting involved in multifamily investment for real estate. And so he did that while I was working with Verizon. I was traveling quite a bit. And I found that very interesting. The real estate side of it, not commercial or multifamily, but I had the opportunity to leave Verizon in 2016 and thought, you know what? I think I want to go into residential real estate. The market here is crazy. The growth in Texas is just amazing. And it really intrigued me. Very, but just something that I thought I would really enjoy.
Very good. So Verizon, that's a great company. I used to be a recruiter years and years and years ago, would actually recruit people into Verizon. And the funny thing is every time someone had to leave, they'd be immediately calling me. He's like, how do I get back in? I want to get back into Verizon. So it's a fantastic company. I'd be curious to know what you learned in that experience that you've been able to bring over and use in real estate.
Yeah, I really am incredibly grateful for my work at Verizon. So 19 years I was in the wireless side, and then the last years I was there, I was on enterprise. And what I learned without a doubt was that it's just business, that you cannot take anything personally. And I think that that has been a tremendous benefit for me moving into real estate, that this is not personal. And yes, it's a very relational business and you have to know how to build relationships, but it's about the business. And so you can't take anything personally.
I love that you said that because real estate is a very personal business, but like you said, you can't take things personally. You're going to have friends and family use someone else, and it's life, right? You can't take it personally. Or you're going to have a client that calls you and say, you know what, I feel like this is not working out. I want to use a different agent. And so while it's personal, you want to build those personal relationships, you're right, you can't take it personally. That's kind of weird to say, but you got to do it that way. So you're absolutely right. So I know you shared a little bit, why did you decide to leave Verizon and move strictly into real estate?
So it was a mutual in the fact that Verizon was very top heavy on the enterprise side with executives.
Yes.
And so I was a global managing director, and almost all of my employees were international. And I was traveling a tremendous amount. There were 8 of us in that role, and the 3 of us that had the least tenure were offered an early retirement. And I raised my hand as quickly as I could and said, I would love that. I had teenage boys in high school at the time. And so I had traveled so much. I was really looking forward to being at home.
Yeah. That's pretty scary, though. I mean, that's pretty brave to take a for sure job and just let go and move right into real estate. But look, I had a lot of friends over at Verizon that made the same move you did. The funny thing is they do that like periodically. Every 5 or 6 years, all of a sudden there's like middle management. They let people go. They give them like an early retirement or so it's interesting business. I know I don't necessarily like it that way. I like to have loyalty. If I'm going to give someone that position, I want to hold on to them as long as I can. But I understand that the motto at Verizon is to be the reason why customers love you. And I'm curious, how did you apply that into your real estate business?
Yeah. So years. It was an internal on Verizon Wireless customer service side. And it was because competition was so steep that whoever you spoke with as a customer when you called in, we really branded that you need to be the reason that they stay with Verizon Wireless. And so there were so many different components of that that I love and I embrace and I was very involved in, that when I decided I wanted to create my own brand, it was Be the Reason. But it was Be the Reason the customer feels educated, they feel confident, and they feel really proud of the real estate transaction that they had. So that's what Be the Reason means for real estate in my mind. And that's what I work really hard to convey and brand.
I think that's fantastic. I think more people need to kind of create that motto and really understand their why. So many people believe that real estate is all about sales. And you actually argue that it's not about the sales, it's more about customer service. Why would you argue that?
Yeah, I think it's crazy why it falls under an industry labeled sales so quickly and so easily. So I think without a doubt that it's customer service because it is the largest transaction that a person typically makes in their life. And it is typically their biggest asset. And so you have to walk with them through that process. You need to be their advocate. You need to help them. You need to protect them. You need to help them avoid surprises where and when possible, right? It's very service driven, not sales driven. However, you have to be a shark.
Yes.
And you need to be able to be very shrewd in a good way with their money. You need to protect them. You need to get them top dollar when you're listing, and you need to get them bottom dollar when you're buying. And they need to know that. So does that component fall under sales? Of course.
Yeah.
But everything else is very service driven. And so if you only focus on the sales aspect of that, you don't always get the service part right. And the service part is what lands most of the time in any transaction. So yeah, that's my argument, is that it really is customer service.
So I completely agree with you. In fact, it goes beyond that. Once you're actually working with that client, that customer service piece is what wins you for future referrals and wins you them using you again.
Right.
And so it's funny. There's people always think like the automotive space, car dealerships are, they're just pure sales, and they drive and they just shove things down your throat. But some of the best dealerships out there have moved away from sales and focused on the education of it.
Right.
Helping you feel like the customer service piece, helping you feel warm and welcome because they know there's 5 other Lexus dealerships you can go to. Right. But let me educate you. Let me help you. Let me understand what you're looking for first and foremost, not shove down the best car I've gotten out in the place. Right. And then they move into sales when it really counts. After you've picked the one you want, they've educated you, feel comfortable, then they go into the sales mode. And we're kind of doing the same thing. So I'm glad you shared that because I think that's very important. People understand that a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of agents are really focused on the sale, right? Because they want that commission. But sometimes that turns around and bites them in the rear end. You've got to focus on the customer service, build a relationship. If you do it right and truly serve other people first, the commission will come.
Right.
And more importantly, more commission will ultimately come later down the road. So, but you've adopted a strategy of pampering your listing clients. So I love that, pampering your listing clients. What do you do for them and how has that been effective for you?
It's really effective for me because they know that my objective is to reduce as much stress as I can. It's stressful, period. And I am incredibly transparent that selling your house is not for sissies. It's stressful. Yeah. But we work at different pain points to reduce that. So one of the things we do is I bring in a stager, and she goes through, if the house is currently lived in, she will help them. I bring in a professional organizer, And she typically works with pantries and master bedroom closets. She does an amazing job. I've got a girl that does professional floral arrangements for the day of the photo shoot. I bring in moving boxes, right? When the house is sold, the day they move out, before it's turned over to the people that are buying it, I bring in a professional cleaning company. And I do those things. I also think I've got some phenomenal photographers, right? I have a girl on my team that does marketing. She's got a degree in finance with a master's in marketing, and she's amazing. And we create a strategy for every single listing that's a little bit different that matches that geographical area and those buyers, right? The demographics there. But I pay for that. And I do that out of my commission. Mm-hmm. And I definitely believe that it's been a tremendous asset to the client without costing me an arm and a leg.
Sure.
You know, so I'm doing this very regularly now. So I'm working with my business partners on getting the best deal always, but without selling my client short in any way.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I do see a lot of agents, and I'm not going to down it, but I see a lot of agents who will tack on additional marketing fees for those type of services. I love the fact that you're willing to absorb that. I mean, that's what people are paying you for. They're paying you to sell it, and sometimes selling it means going above and beyond to make sure the house is ready for sale. And so, yeah, I respect that, and I'm glad you do that, because that's how I'd actually run my business as well. Now, do you actually market these services? Do you tell the world about them, or is that something they discover pleasantly after the fact?
I don't market it. We put little teasers out, and it's a big debate on my team. I've got just the most amazing group that I work with. And we're starting to tackle it a little bit differently, but I don't necessarily market it because we don't need to right now. The referrals that show them our sheet and listing appointment. It's just really nice. It's nice to see their reaction. They're like, oh, I knew you did this, but I didn't know you did all of this. Yeah. And every single person on the team does that. So it's a very uniformed approach for each listing.
So I'm curious, is there another reason to that? I mean, in other words, you just don't want anyone else to know you're doing these things and pampering your clients?
No.
So they copy you? Or
that's a great question. Yeah. No, not at all. So you know what? What is the saying? Imitation is the best form of flattery, yeah. Right? And so, or flattery, whatever. Yeah, you got it. Right, yeah. But I have no anxiety about that whatsoever, and the reason is because I am spending an incredible amount of energy and money in making sure that I hire the right people for Be the Reason Real Estate Group. And so it doesn't matter if you copy every single thing on our sheet and present it to a client. If you don't have the internal core that goes with that, it'll flop.
Right.
And so it's, you know, I've had a business coach since I joined Fathom. I had a business coach with Fathom as soon as I signed up, and I saw that it was something being offered, and not many people were taking advantage of it.
It's a shame.
And and it was one of the things that I really worked through when I started the concept of should I do a team or should I not, was really not worrying at all about what we set up on our team and whether or not someone else wants to do that.
Right.
And so I don't.
I used to actually speak at a couple of the Active Rain way, this is dating me, way back when they actually toured around the country and had events. And I had no problem sharing everything I was doing with the people because I knew for a fact that less than 1% of the people in the room would actually execute on it. Right. You know, it all comes down to execution. There's a lot of companies who try to copy what Fathom does, and I'm okay with that because most of them just can't execute. And the ones that do execute, it's actually good for all of us. So, you know, the fact is you want more agents to copy you because you want people to see real estate agents as a whole as being people who really care for you and there to support you. So it's not a bad thing if they copy you, but at the same time, unfortunately, human nature dictates most of them aren't going to. It's a pretty sad state. Now, I'm going to deviate for a second. You actually talked about coaches. So how long have you had a coach now?
So I've had a coach with Verizon throughout my career there, but in real estate, I've had it since I became a realtor 3 years ago, and I've had the same one. And I specifically hired a coach because I felt like I had never been an entrepreneur before, and I needed help with business strategy. So I didn't need a cheerleader. I didn't need anybody to motivate me. Those weren't my needs at the time.
Yeah.
It was really creating business strategy. And that's what he's done. And it's been incredibly beneficial.
And I assume now that you've kind of gotten through that piece, is the focus more accountability?
No,
No?
it really isn't. So I'm pretty accountable. That's not an enormous gap for me. It's still the strategy piece and what's next.
That's fantastic.
It's that part.
I would definitely encourage everyone to have a coach. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's because a lot of people, I asked about the accountability because a lot of people need accountability. Like they've
Yeah.
got great ideas. They just need someone to hold them accountable. And
Right.
sometimes it's not a coach. Sometimes it's just finding another agent who you guys can have coffee with once a week and just hold each other accountable. It's
Right.
amazing. The times I see agents will pick an accountability partner, their business sometimes skyrockets. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
goes up by 20%, but even 20% sometimes can be life changing for people. Right.
Right.
So, absolutely, having a coach, having an accountable partner is fantastic. So, I'm really glad you brought that up and shared that with us. Now, I understand that you're also a big fan of open houses. Now, a lot of agents aren't. You hear the both sides. You hear like they suck, and you hear other people saying they're fantastic. What do you do that makes them effective?
Yeah, so here's why my habit of an open house is it's definitely traffic, of course. We want people in there. We want people to see what a great property it is, how prepared the house is, all of those things. But it really, the primary objective is to do whatever it takes for my homeowners, for my sellers. And that's why I do them. My sellers feel like I am working my tail off, especially by scheduling, promoting, marketing like crazy open houses. So whether they're successful or not, that is a flip of the coin. It is. We do everything in our power to market it effectively. And I will say I've had some that are really successful. I've also had some that aren't.
Right.
Now that I have a team, we have a lot of conversations about it with safety, right? And so what does that look like? And we make sure that we're not foolish about it. Everybody has their own strategies that they're developing for that. But yeah, open houses. Let me say one more thing. I love open houses when the family has young kids or when the family has older folks that are living in the home. Because if I can do my best to market a time in the week where everybody can come and everybody can be open, we can also perhaps limit the time for showings a little bit. And it's just that whole holistic approach in selling your home, being very engaged with all the different things they have going on, that really works well.
Yeah. So you actually talked about one thing. You talked about safety. Do you mind sharing a couple things that you guys do for safety purposes? I mean, when you go into the home, what a couple things you guys do to stay safe in case someone comes in?
Yeah, so one of the ladies on my team is working on her conceal and carry license right now, and so she's got that, and she feels great about that. I just purchased some mace, right, and I've got that. For an open house, I've had my son come before, and he's 19 and 6'3", and he's been great, right? And so we talk about, do you need to have somebody with you? Mm-hmm. And do you need a partner? Recently, I had someone in the mentoring program come to an open house with me, and we were there the whole time together.
That's great.
So it's that. It's also, I've asked the team to be very aware of right before an open house ends. And this is a really weird thing, Josh, but what I'm seeing is I almost always get traffic right before an open house is scheduled to end. and just to be on high alert for that. Like,
Hmm.
why is that? Are you upstairs turning lights off when somebody walks in the door,
Right.
right? And so just, to be aware. We've also taken a self-defense class recently for realtors. So that was really good. I laughed with the team that I think I've forgotten all of it. And so we need to do that periodically because it wasn't just a fun team builder. There were key learnings. But we'll keep talking about it. And I think the more we talk about it, the more it gets embedded in our thoughts, just the awareness.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yeah. Now, you actually asked a question that I may know part of the answer to. So you ask, why do people come at the end? Why is there always this group of people coming at the end of an open house? And what I find is sometimes the window for the open house is small. And so
Hmm.
people will drive by and they'll call their spouse and say, hey, there's an open house. We need to go see it. They'll go back, they'll change, they'll get their spouse, they'll get the kids, or they'll put them somewhere, lock them in a closet, and then they come. Well, at that point, you're kind of coming at the end. And so
Yeah.
you'll find a lot of times that you may want to extend that a little bit, knowing that the first half hour, the first hour may be very slow, and it always kind of picks up near the end. One of the things I would add though is, coming from a martial arts and military background, and I'm always very cognizant of that. So one of the things I'd recommend you do is also figure out what your exit points are. Right? If you're going to exit out the
Right.
back door, make sure you know what side of the yard the gate is on, because some yards have
Absolutely.
gates on both sides and some only have one side. So
Hmm.
make sure that's unlocked as well. So if you had to exit, you're not finding yourself in a corner and you're stuck there, right?
Hmm.
Hide the knives. I mean, every kitchen has knives. Take them and put them in a cabinet somewhere else that's not normal for knives to be, right? And
Hmm.
then put them back later on. Just make sure when you look at the statistics, most people aren't bringing the weapons with them. They're using weapons of convenience. And
Hmm.
so definitely, look around. Anything that can be used as a weapon, hide it, and maybe even set one aside for yourself, right? As
Hmm.
far as the concealed carry, I conceal carry. My wife does as well. One of the
Hmm.
things I would encourage you is, if you're going to conceal carry, be willing to use it. Because if you're not willing to use it, please do not carry it. There's so many people that
Right.
get the weapon used against them because they're too scared to use it. So, if you're going to carry it, be willing to shoot them somewhere. So, all right, with that, I want to kind of go back to your team. You started talking about your team a little bit, and I'm intrigued because I love team building. I love teams. When it comes to team building, you take the hiring process very seriously. I know you shared that with us before. How do you go about finding new team members?
Yeah, so I've been incredibly fortunate that they have reached out to me for the most part. But my business coach, okay, let me go back. First off, it's just humbling that you're even talking to me because I have only been in the business 3 years, and I will say there are phenomenal agents with Fathom that I learned so much from.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you know, I really benefit from speaking to all them. But the last fall, when my business coach has been bugging me for about a year to start a team, he's like, you need to start a team. And I was like, no, I'm so happy being an independent
Yeah.
contributor. But I was like, okay, I would like to hire you to do a project for me. And I'd like for you to evaluate other brokerages in Texas that are offering what I want to offer. And I'd like to see their best practices. And so he did that, and it came back what I thought it would come back. There weren't any that were offering the same thing. And so then once we decided, okay, I want to hire a team, I just want to make sure that I'm hiring the right folks. He offered an assessment that he has created before. And the assessment is probably the most thorough assessment I've ever been involved in. So when I speak with someone and when they want to consider being on my team, I ask them to take the assessment. I pay for it, they get the results. It is a huge benefit to them, and it's also a great benefit to me. But what it has done is it has netted me individuals on my team that are really intrinsically wired the same way I am when it comes to the customer experience. So we're diverse. All of us are very different. I work really hard. I'm still working hard. I don't want my team to look the same. I want the demographics and diversity on my team to be extremely reflective of what it is in this world. But intrinsically, the assessment helps me identify that the way they value the customer experience is very unified. And so the people that I have, like, seriously, it's like a gift from God. They are the most amazing people, and they're crazy successful, and they love their clients, and their clients know it.
I love the idea of the assessment. I think it's incredibly important because it's one thing to get the right people on the bus, as they say, but also making sure you put them in the right seat. And
Right.
you'll see teams, people coming all the time saying, hey, I saw you're looking for a buyer's agent. I'd love to be a buyer's agent. It turns out they may be a better transaction coordinator for you, right?
Right.
Or an assistant in some other way. Maybe they're just not the right fit for a buyer's agent.
Right.
But you don't know that if you don't do an assessment, right?
Right.
People put their best foot forward. They talk a great game. It's like you're dating in the beginning, and you don't always know. And the assessment really helps. But I want to kind of take a step back because you actually said something about, the fact that I'm talking to you. What I love about you and the reasons why I want to talk to you is because you've only been in the business for a few years. We meet agents all the time who've been in the business for 2 and 3 times longer than you have, and they make a lot of excuses. Right? Now, sometimes that's all they want to do. They just want to do a few homes per year, and that's all they want to do. And God bless them. That's what one of the great things about this industry is you can do as much or as little as you want to do. But people have been in the business for 5, 6 years and say, well, I haven't been in the business that long. I'm still, getting my feet underneath me. And then every once in a while you meet someone who by the second year, they're rocking and rolling. They're taking names, right? They're closing 20, 30, 40 homes per year. And it's incredible to see. And so I want people to see that yes, it is possible. And just because you're young or you haven't been in the industry that long or whatever reason that you may have in your head, it's just in your head. If you're willing to put in the time and the energy and the hard work, because it is hard work if you do it right, then you can be very successful. And it's you. It's all you, right? The world is not holding you back. There's no glass ceiling here you have to break through. You can be as successful as you want to be in this industry, which is fantastic. So what kind of person are you looking for to be on your team? I think you kind of alluded to that a little bit, but specifically, what are you looking for?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, it's someone that is very altruistic. It's someone that intrinsically loves the customer experience, but it's also someone that is willing to learn how to be a shark. So you cannot be afraid of conflict. You cannot be afraid of negotiation because it is servicing your customer to go that extra mile and fight for their money. And so those two things don't always come together, but the assessment helps identify that there is the ability to learn that. And so it's awesome.
So Jason Purcell just asked, where can I find that assessment? Do you have any places you can send people to go to find something like that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of DISC assessments online. The assessment that I give was developed by my business coach, and it's a little bit pricey. It's right around $400, but it's extremely thorough. And DISC is a component within that assessment, as well as many other things. And so there's a really strong focus on motivators as well as communication and how people of a certain, once you assess what their character or their personality type is like, what motivates them, how do they like to be communicated with, and vice versa. And so it's all of those things that really make for a very cohesive team. So, Jason, I'm sorry, but that one I get from my business coach.
So if you search DISC profile, you'll find a lot of places out there. Some are very simple. Most of them are free. There's a lot that are free out there. There's some that cost money. It's not enough, though, because you have to know what that means, right? So if someone scores this, on the profile, where does that actually fit, in the team, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand that the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book did a really good job at kind of identifying different roles using the DISC and things like that. So that's something to look into as well. It's a great book. It's been around for a long time, and it's got still a lot of great advice in that book. So some team leaders provide leads, and some team leaders kind of take that mentoring approach. What style do you have with your team?
Mentoring.
mentoring.
Absolutely. So my business is based from my database, my own sphere. And I really work hard to help my team identify where their business is within their own sphere. And you can have great success by doing that. Now, I went to Brian Buffini, the course that Roger teaches,
Yes.
my first year, and there are a lot of principles in that course that I learned about focusing on your own sphere that worked really well for me. I don't really sign up for any approach 100%, but I take the pieces that make sense for me. And so doing that and really focusing on that really helped my business to grow. However, I will say that I am right now testing some Zillow leads. I've signed up for 6 months because I want my team to be as successful as possible. And it is kind of painful.
Yes.
But I will also say that I was on Cindy Joseph's team for a period of time, and Cindy did Zillow leads. And at that time, it worked extremely well for me.
Yeah. They changed. They changed a little bit. So
They have changed a little bit.
actually, a lot.
And with leads, when you get cold leads like that, the real crux of the success is to be able to reach out within 2 minutes or less.
Right.
And if you can drop everything and do that, then you have the data proves that you have a much greater likelihood of being successful with that lead. But there's a lot of challenges in doing that. So I'm always open. I always talk to my team about what is it that they need, what will help them. And I want to make sure that I deliver on that side. But right now our focus is really on mentoring, and they're doing a bang-up job. They're
Good.
doing great.
Good. That's fantastic. Talking about leads for a second. So one of the things you may want to consider, we provide all the agents with KV Core, which is a great system.
Yeah.
Great system for Google AdWords, and they'll actually manage that process for you. If you want to have someone else kind of create that, right? You give them a budget. I want the budget of this. They'll spend that for you, generate the traffic to your website. Those leads are a little bit more raw than the Zillow leads you may get, but ultimately the acquisition price, the cost of acquisition becomes much lower over time. And if you look at all of our top teams in the company, the vast majority of all the leads they generate, I'd probably say 80-90% of all the leads they generate are from Google AdWords, right? Generating the traffic to their website. Those people register on their website and then become leads that they're not having to pay Realtor.com or Zillow for. So that's something consider looking into. It is a longer process. So I do want to forewarn you that where a Zillow lead you might have closings in the first 1 to 3 months, Google AdWords tends to be more like 6 to 8 months. Now you'll have some that pop early, but you'll start to see them really kind of hit their curve right around that 6 to 8 month mark. So you got to stay consistent. But I'd encourage you to do that versus feeding the people who want to put us out of business. I know it's conspiracy theory, but I could talk all day on that one. So I understand that the way what you're doing with mentoring people is very noble. It's hard to do. It's not easy because you always hear that thing: you lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. You can teach people all day long, but they've got to be able to execute. And so part of your job as a team leader is to hold them accountable, right? You're their accountability partner now, especially since you're investing your time. Because the more time you invest in them, the less time you have to close your own business. And so your business will take a step backwards in the hopes that it'll eventually take 2 steps forward because of the team. So that's great, though. I'd be curious to touch base with you later on and find out how the leads are coming along, if that's changed anything. For any agent that's starting out, one of the things I say to the agents is focus on your sphere first and really build that, and then add leads as supplementary. If you have a lot of money available to you, then start with leads right away. That way you've got closings happening right away while you're building your sphere, because your sphere can take time to build. So there's 2 approaches. If you've got money available that you can burn, I won't call it burning because it turns into closings, but if you've got money available in the beginning, be willing to invest in leads in the beginning as you build your sphere. If you don't, focus on your sphere, and then as money's coming in, spend a little bit on lead generation to help supplement and take it to the next level. Because at some point, your sphere can only go so far. At some point, you cap that out, and you just can't go beyond. So, What are some of the aha moments you've had in building your team that you found rewarding?
I think seeing them see their own success.
Yes.
So seeing them see, wow, I can do this, or I'm good at this, even though they're all very humble. They're incredibly smart, but just to see them realize I can do this is incredibly rewarding. It's a great aha.
Yeah,
It
no, it really is fantastic to see them succeed. So
is.
especially on the mentoring side, you'll find a lot of agents that you bring in, you mentor, you help them become successful. They end up kind of flying off on and doing their own thing, kind of like
Mhm.
with you and Cindy Joseph.
Right,
She's a
right.
fantastic team leader. She's very
She is.
special. I love her to death. Her whole family's amazing. But at some point, you mentor the agent and they become very successful and they go off on their own. And eventually, they start their own team as well. And
Yeah,
so, if you're going to take that mentoring approach, you've got to be that kind of person that loves to see people do that, loves to see people
right.
move off on their own and be successful. And clearly, I've heard that from you, and I see that from you right now as well. That you have that heart for people, and so that's awesome. Is your whole team agents, or is any
No.
part of your team staff, or how's your
No, the
team
very
structured?
first person that I hired was a woman who has a background in project management, and she is everything I am not. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She is extremely detailed and organized, and she's just a wonderful individual. And so she started helping me with just transactional stuff, right? And when I hired her, my business took off. And then the next person I hired was my marketing person who she can do on social media in 15 minutes what it takes me 4 hours to do.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like she could do it in her sleep. It's sickening and really impressive at the same time. I love it. And then I hired 3 agents. And so there's 4 agents and 2 folks that really help the whole thing run.
Yeah. I think you realize this. A lot of people don't. And so I want to kind of just touch on the fact that before you started building a team, before you hired that first agent, you built a foundation. Right? You're
Right.
building a foundation, a structure, so as you bring people, you can plug them into that foundation. It becomes your value
Right.
proposition as well. Right? You join my team, I'm not just going to mentor you. I'm going to give you access to all the things I put together, all of my systems and my support and everything else.
Right.
So now your job is to go out and show homes and write the contract, and then you go off to the next one. Our
Right.
team's going to handle the transaction, the closing, everything else, right? So
Right.
it allows you to provide more support and more value to your agents, which also justifies those splits that you're asking from your agents.
Hmm.
So obviously, the more split you ask from your agents, the more value you have to give them in return. So it can't
Right.
just be hey, it's going to be 50-50, but you're just on my team. I'm not giving you anything for that. The agents aren't going
Right.
to stick around. Some may join you, but they're not going to stick around. Now, do you have any certain production goals for your team members, or is it really
So
based on their wants and needs?
it's based on their wants and needs. So we're going to be attending the 2020 business planning coming up in the next couple weeks, just to really talk about that. And I really want them to set those goals. I want them to be realistic, but feel like they're growing. And then I can hold them accountable to that. But I want them to get skin in the game in setting that because they'll feel successful in doing it that way.
That's excellent. I would encourage you, though, I do want to challenge you just a little bit on that.
Okay.
I'd encourage you to set at least a minimum production goal for team members. Now,
Okay.
knowing you, you're probably not hiring people that you don't believe are going to be producing anyways. But
Right.
I have seen people add agents to their team who it's just, whatever you want to produce, it's up to you. If you want to do 4 per year, that's fine. If you want to do 40 per year, that's fine. The problem is whether they do 4 or 40, you're investing just as much time. And there's got to be a return on your investment of time and the investment, your actual
Nope,
monetary
that's
investment as
great.
well. So think about that. So you want to set a minimum. So people on my team, this is my minimum production goal for you. Now, it may be low. It's whatever you want to set that bar at, but make sure it's worth that return on your investment of time. Because again, it's going to
Absolutely.
take away from your own personal production.
No, that's good.
Yeah. So what should an agent's personal production be at, in your opinion, before they consider building a team?
Oh, so yeah,
I had to put you on the spot there.
I sincerely believe that this was the power of a business coach in my life to help me identify when I would be ready to start a team, not necessarily from a production number, but when could I financially support my own family and then yet invest in a team, right? And so that that is what worked for me. Um, I have 20 plus years of leadership, and I think that that comes into it a lot also.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood very deeply that starting a team was extremely serious. This wasn't a fly by the seat of your pants. I think I want a team. I understood this was going to be a phenomenal amount of work for me. If I wanted a team, I needed to be available to support them.
Right.
And I am available to support them. But that comes at a tremendous cost, right? So, production goals for me and being able to influence what that would look like for another person before they start a team doesn't matter as much as what are you willing to sacrifice
Right.
to start a team. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I'm pulling up a question here that someone else asked, and I know you just got started on your lead gen piece, so I'm going to kind of deviate back to leads so I can answer some people's questions.
Okay.
Jason asks, what is the best way to convert leads with only emails, or would you suggest mandating? I cannot read. Or would you suggest mandating phone number when they register on their website? Now, with Zillow leads, it's different because Zillow leads, you're getting whatever information Zillow gives you, right?
Right.
With Google
Right.
AdWords coming to your website, you have a choice with KV Core to say when they register, it can be just email, or when they register, they can be email and phone number. You can actually mandate what information you want before they're allowed to register. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take a stab at this, and I'd like to get your feedback as
Okay.
well. The more the more you ask of someone to register, the fewer leads you get.
Right.
However, the better leads you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just get email, then it can be Donald Duck at
Right.
gotohell.com, something crazy like that. If it's email and phone number, the more information you have, the better chance you have at communicating with them. Emailing someone can be slow. Picking up the phone right away and calling and texting them. Sometimes text is the best way to get a hold of people these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's 28, and forget calling her. I've got to text her, if I want her to reply. So I would actually, my personal opinion is ask for the phone number as well. If you're going to do the email, just make sure that the first phone call or the first email you send them is asking for more information. Say, I'd love to call you and set up a time to speak with you and set up a really robust e-alert for you. Can we set up a time for a call? But it really needs to lead to the phone ultimately. So I would personally encourage you to go ahead and add the email address and add the phone number so that you have the ability to call them right away as soon as they register, right? Because like you said, right, Kristen, if you don't call them right away, you're losing that lead.
Right.
And that's just, it's been proven and proven and proven. There's no more arguing that one. You got minutes. The fact is, they're probably registering on multiple people's websites. So if someone says, yeah, I'm making sure I call them within 4 minutes, well, you better be calling them within 3 minutes or 2 minutes, right? The second it
Mm-hmm.
comes in. By the way, that's actually a good part of why a team is so important. Because if a lead comes in and you're the client, you can't respond to them.
Right.
Right? Where having team members, someone can be there to be that Johnny on the spot and be able to
Right.
communicate as soon as it comes in. So what are your thoughts to that question?
I agree with what you said.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, when it comes to lead gen, I love lead generation. I love lead conversion, that kind of stuff. I could probably spend a long time talking about. Maybe at some point we need to create a show on that alone. But it's one of those things a lot of people don't quite understand. How do you do it? Zillow and Realtor.com, they make it easy because they send leads that are a little bit warmer, a little bit further along in the process. So they're able to convert a little higher percentage of them and quicker, but also
But
ultimately at a much higher cost.
with that, you talked about safety earlier. And this is another thing that is an active live discussion on my team right now is that with Zillow leads, there comes a different level of safety awareness because the data also supports that if you can contact them quickly and you can set up an appointment immediately, then chances are much higher per the data that that lead will close. But that can be very scary. And so when you're dealing with cold leads, it all comes down to preparation and awareness. You've
That's right.
got to have a plan.
Yeah. So you talked quite a bit early on about mentoring or coaching. Now that you've been mentored by others and you're mentoring others, what would you share with a new agent to help them really jumpstart their business?
Yeah, I would share that they need to take full responsibility of being mentored. So, my first 18 months in the business, actually my first part of my second year, because my first year was painful, but my first part of my second year, I was in transactions with an agent on the other side of the transaction that I was thoroughly impressed with. And when the transaction would be done, I would call the agent. I would ask them to have coffee, and then I would ask them to be part of my tribe, for lack of a better word. And because of that, I have 5 women. They all happen to be women that are in 5 different brokerages. They've all been in the business a minimum of 22 years. A couple of them have their own brokerages. And they are incredibly successful and they are a resource to me. And they have seen so many different things. So I've got those 5. In addition to, I've got several. Cindy's one of them. Paula Turner's another one. June Robinson that I can call if I get stuck, right? But those people and spread the resources, right? Because you will get different perspectives and you also won't be a drain on just one, right? And you have to respect their time and you really need to be grateful for their willingness to help.
Right.
But I would say that to any new agent that if you're on the other side of a transaction and that person just knocks your socks off with how professional they are, then when it's all said and done, ask them if you could use them as a resource in the future. I have never had anyone tell me no.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way.
So you named like 9 women. That seems a little sexist. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. But Roger, let me throw Roger in there because I took Brian Buffini with Roger, like I said, and there have been a couple of times that I've called Roger and he's been amazing.
Yes,
and, this past year we had a transaction where JR and Michael were heavily involved and unbelievably helpful. So there's the guys. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. I tease, but there's so much value to be had. Our leadership team is probably 50-50, 50% women, 50% men. We need that because women and men have completely different perspectives on things. I ask one of our male leaders, how things are going, and like, things are great. I ask a woman in that same market, and she's like, well, sentiment is down. I mean, they see things in ways men don't. Yeah. God made us different for a reason. Yeah. And together we become perfect. Separate, we're just, 2 halves. So I really value that. So definitely having women in your life, having men who can all share different perspectives and different ways that's been successful is incredibly important.
And different ages and different cultures that will only continue to make us better.
That's right. One of the things I love about this country, and unfortunately I'm starting to see a little bit less and less of that, and that's we were the melting pot. And now I'm starting to see more and more communities where it's just this one culture and then this one culture, and we're almost like we're self-segregating, which is unfortunate because what made this country so great was our ability to share our cultures. Here's the best of my culture. Here's the best of yours. And we bring those together and create something even better together. And unfortunately, we're kind of moving away from that. It's unfortunate, but it is life. So as real estate agents, we get to participate and try and encourage people. Obviously, we can't steer them, but just, sharing life with them. But you're absolutely right. Different cultures and everything else that really make us all better. And I think one of the things you said, which I really value, is the fact that you're going to be asking these people for their time I'd encourage you to be of value to them as well. If it's not knowledge, maybe it's something else you can do for them, right? It doesn't have to be, I give you this and you give me that. It doesn't have to be that, but be willing to, what can I do for you? You've spent all this time pouring into me. What can I do for you as well? So I'm really glad that you're able to share that. I think more and more people need that in their lives. I know I need more of that for sure. So one last thing I want to ask you is, do you have any favorite books? I'm an avid reader. I love to read books. I've been really naughty the last year, but usually I read about 1 to 2 books every week. Or rather, I'll be honest, I listen to 1 to 2 books every single week. But what are some of the favorite books you'd share?
Yeah, so I love to read. So, but I have a slight addiction to podcast. It's bad. Like I might need help with it. Okay. But I'm in my car. And so there you have it. I do listen to a ton of podcasts, but as far as books go, I like anything with Harvard Business Review, and you can get a subscription to that. It's fairly reasonable. It's a quick read, and it's incredibly smart and insightful. I love business books sometimes. So I recently read Bold. The Way of the Shepherd is a really great book. I've read The One Thing. I'm staring at that right now. I thought that was a good book. But I also read a lot of spiritual books. So anything by Mark Batterson. I like Beth Moore and her series. I like Priscilla Shirer. And those types of books. And then I like books just about my own brain, because I frequently find it not working very well. So I'm reading a book right now called The Road Back to You, and it's about Enneagrams. It's very interesting, but it's just about how people are wired and how we think. And that is really good stuff for me too. So I spend most of my time, like I said, on podcast. I have a podcast that I am extremely faithful to called How I Built This by Guy Raz. And it's all about entrepreneurs. And because I'm new to this world, it's incredibly inspiring. And it's an hour long, and they share their failures. They share how much money they lost. They share how they got back on track and now their success and what they want to do next. And I really appreciate that approach. And
You'll
then
have to share that with me.
You what?
You'll have to share that with me.
I will. It's so good. And then TED. I like TED Radio Hour. I like The Hidden Brain. Those types of things that have a bit of a science base, but.
What was the one about the wired brain? What was that one called? You talk about how we're wired? Hidden Brain? I need to make sure my wife doesn't see that one.
No, that book is Enneagrams. It's The Road Back to You.
Got it.
It's very good. Yeah.
You'd mentioned one about how we're wired. It's like my wife already thinks my wires are crossed. I don't need her to have a book that can prove it. So, anyway, look, Kristen, I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. This time has been great. In fact, we're pushing an hour. I mean, that was awesome. Didn't realize that went by really fast. Before we let you go, I wanted to remind you, and I'm about to read this because this is not normally my job, that Fathom Realty offers 100% commission and the tools designed for your business, including things like, and I don't have to read this, I know what we offer, things like KV Core. We offer a lot of amazing technology for our agents. I think our support is hands down some of the best. I think Kristen could attest to that. I think she even shared that a little bit. We offer truly affordable healthcare in almost every single market. We're trying to open that in all the markets we're in. We've been doing that for quite some time. I hear a lot of companies talk about offering this now. It's like, we've been doing that for 2 years now. We were doing that first. We also offer equity on every single transaction you close. And so we offer quite a bit for our agents. So if you'd love to learn more, I'd love to invite you to visit fathomcareers.com. On there, you're going to see everything. You're going to see every one of our fees we charge. We don't hide anything. We're very transparent. So if we charge it, it's on our website. In fact, I think we're the only company that does that. So I'd love you to visit fathomcareers.com, learn more about Fathom Realty. I appreciate next week we've got Chris Mitchell from Capital Title. It's going to be hard to kind of rein him in because he's incredibly smart and he likes to share and share and share. And I got to always pull him back in to get him back on track. But he's going to be fantastic. So I hope you join us next week as well. So thank you, everybody. It's been fun. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful week.